Good morning, Professor. Delighted to have you with us.
It's always a pleasure to join you.
So, as Ashim mentioned, we're going to discuss the London Security Forum. So what are some of the key issues on the agenda?
Well, I think, as your viewers have long known in Poland, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, with the full-scale invasion now in its 28th month, of course, that is the dominant issue. And we have the immediate question here of what will happen on the front line, including Russia's latest offensive in the Kharkiv region in the northeast of the country, getting U.S., European, and international aid to Ukraine to try to resist that Russian offensive. But of course, it's not just aid on the ground, it's also the question of providing air defenses to Ukraine as Russia steps up its missile and drone attacks to try to knock out the energy infrastructure and to try to terrorize civilians. So there's a wide range of challenges regarding assistance to go to Ukraine. And there's the question that Vladimir Zelensky raised again yesterday, which is, will the international community, especially the United States, permit Ukraine to use weaponry inside Russia? Probably especially these long-range American missiles that were authorized last month. So all of that is the situation in terms of the military side, but you have, of course, the economic questions, which is maintaining Ukraine's economic system, maintaining its governance, maintaining its public services. And those are just the immediate issues, because we could talk about the wider European defense issues, including, for example, the proposal made yesterday by the Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, which is for a European-wide air defense system.
Professor, I mean, these are all topics which, of course, we all agree are critical to Ukraine's future, but they're not new. President Zelensky, in fact, has only recently said that the delivery of weaponry is a year late already. What's going to be so different about this particular meeting? Is it going to speed things up?
Well, we have had shifts. I mean, the problem here is, as you've just identified, is that the process of assisting Ukraine, when you're trying to coordinate so many countries, when some countries hold out, it can become a halting process. And so Zelensky's absolutely right. We're talking about assistance now that should have been given last year. But remember that in the past few months, we've had two major developments. We've had the European Union agreeing on the 50 billion euro support package for Ukraine to keep the system going through 2027. We have had the Americans then in April authorizing almost $61 billion of aid. So you need to coordinate all of that, which is being developed. And then you also need to get some agreement on fundamental questions. I mean, we still have an issue in terms of some countries being very much in providing or calling for support with Ukraine with warplanes, with missiles. But we have the Germans, for example, being out and still refusing to deliver Taurus missiles. We have also the wider aspects that are ongoing in this war. For example, the cyber war, and I think especially Russia's information warfare. How do we in other countries, whether it's Poland, whether it's the rest of Europe, the UK, whether it's the US, defend against this relentless Russian propaganda, which tells all of us, look, you should just go home. We'll take care of Kiev ourselves.
Right, absolutely. This is a huge issue. But Professor, let me go back to discussing the Donald Tusk's proposal, right, and the so-called European Iron Dome, if you will. So what do you think about this idea, and how has it been received?
Well, this is a proposal which has been developing on an individual country basis for some time. So, for example, the Germans last year agreed to take Israeli-made air defense missiles. The question here now is not just of a particular European country using the type of air defense that we've seen in the Middle East, but trying to coordinate this air defense, as we've just been discussing, on a Europe-wide basis. So what Prime Minister Tusk is saying is, look, it's not just a question of 1, 2, 3 countries. It is, all of us across Europe, especially those on the front line. And let's talk about not only how we get the specific air defense systems, which are made, for example, in the United States, the Patriot missiles, the Iris-T missiles out of Germany, and the Arrow 3s out of Israel. Let's talk also about coordinating our surveillance and our radar systems. Because, of course, before you can fire these missiles at incoming attack, you have to know that the attack is on its way. And I think what we're seeing here is that across Europe, there is a recognition. There is a recognition that we are all in this together, given that there is a threat which exists from Russia, and that you can no longer consider questions like air defense just simply on an individual country-by-country basis.
Right. So an integrated air defense system, Professor. But Foreign Minister Sikorski will be attending this conference tomorrow, I believe, in London. What do you think he wants to achieve by his presence there?
Well, I think, again, you're talking about Poland being a frontline country. It's the one right behind Ukraine. If Russia continued to pursue Vladimir Putin's plans for expansion, for dominating his neighbors. So Sikorski, like I think other frontline countries, I would point out, for example, the foreign minister of the Baltic states, are simply going there to say, this isn't just a question of, Poland will always have to face this imminent question, and then countries like Europe or Italy or the UK, they can simply stand back. Since 2022, despite all the problems in getting aid to Ukraine in time, despite this being stop-start, you have seen a change in attitude across Europe, which is, it is not just a question of here's Western Europe, here's Eastern Europe. You're talking about an expanded NATO with Sweden and Finland. You're talking about Poland, the Baltic states, the Czech Republic having much more of a say in political and economic discussions as well as military. And need we remind the viewers, you are talking about the fact that there are challenges that remain, including another country in Central Europe, Hungary, who has the outlier of the Orban government, which sometimes stands in the way of this move to integration that Foreign Minister Sikorski will be talking about with others in London.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned earlier the hybrid warfare, and of course we had this incident with 9 people in Poland now being arrested, suspected of sabotage, right? I mean, they're suspected of, having links to Belarus and Russia and so on. So of course we have these foreign agents operating on the Polish territory, but also in other European countries. So what I'm getting at, we've discussed these sort of physical defenses, but what about things such as cybersecurity or, intelligence cooperation? Will these be sort of significant topics as well?
Again, your viewers will know this from Polish history, that when you talk about defending your country, you're not just talking about, direct military confrontation. You are talking about those who try to subvert the country from within. Immediately after the Russian full-scale invasion, hundreds of Russian intelligence agents were swept up in Europe and were deported out of countries, including Poland. But that didn't stop Russia's attempt at subversion. So they would work with local people, and they would work with their cyber operations. They would work with their so-called information operations to try to what we call flood the zone. And what we've seen in the past few months is we have seen exposures of these networks of people in, for example, Germany, in, for example, Italy, in, for example, even in Brussels, within the European Union space, who have actually been assisting the Russians in terms of these subversion efforts. Just a few days ago, one of the leading outlets, Voice of Europe, which was a cover site for Russian disinformation operations, was finally sanctioned by the Europeans. That's the kind of thing that you have to watch out on a day-to-day basis, which is in a 21st world of social media where things come at us thick and fast. We've got to maintain reliability of information. We've got to have discussions like you and I are having, but we also have to watch out for those who are trying to deceive and manipulate us.
Right. Well, hybrid warfare isn't anything new either, is it, Professor? I mean, and Russia has always been very adept at implementing it, especially in the information sphere. Is Europe and the US finally waking up?
I think there is a lot more attention in terms of the practical steps that can be taken regarding, as it were, being informed about what's happening in the social media sphere, whether it be the internet, whether it be various platforms. And I think there's a lot more coordination of discussion amongst countries about this. But I must be honest with you, this has to start with you and I, and it has to start with individuals in each of our countries who become aware of the fact that while social media gives us the opportunity to have discussions like these, while it connects us, it also, whether we're talking about Russia, whether we're talking about another country trying to spread propaganda, we have to be aware of it. And I have to be very honest with you that this is not just simply Russians who are doing this. There are many activists in the US, in the UK, and across Europe who have said that the war in Ukraine is all the fault of Poland, the fault of the US, the fault of the European Union. They do so on a day-to-day basis. And we have to say politely and respectfully to them, no, this is not the case. This is your propaganda versus the reality that this war was started by a man named Vladimir Putin in February 26, 2022.
Professor Scott Lucas, University College Dublin, thank you, sir, for being with us this morning. Great having you on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.